Good afternoon. I join the University Board of Trustees and the entire South Carolina State University family to welcome you to the 2022 Honors and Awards Convocation. Today is a celebration of these honorees, our students, our future, who recognize the value of scholarship and who perpetuate a legacy of excellence that is a tradition of this great university. We also embrace our faculty and staff for their commitment to the university. And so it is appropriate that we pause during our daily proceedings to recognize and honor all aspects of excellence at South Carolina State University. Now, we will have our invocation by Minister Zachary Delano Middleton, Life Advisor, Oliver Gospel Mission in Columbia, South Carolina. Following him, Dr. Judith Makalangay, 2021-2022 University-wide South Carolina State University Professor of the Year in the College of Science, Mathematics, Engineering, and Technology, will bring the occasion. Following the occasion, I will introduce the speaker.
Let us pray. Our Father and God, we come to you, God, just thankful for an opportunity to celebrate this amazing achievement of our graduates. A lot of them have labored this year, and they are able to see the fruits of that labor in this time. And so we want to celebrate and just thank you for that. And I also want to just pray, seeing the theme for today, how our graduates are able to excel in a constantly changing climate. They had the opportunity to engage not only what we've seen the civil unrest in the last 10 years and beyond, but also COVID-19. And as we think that we're going to get back to a sense of normal, God, our hope and our prayer is that you would ground them throughout wherever they would go throughout the globe. Also, God, I pray for a sense of wisdom and direction as they seek to engage different economic climates and geopolitical climates and things of that sort. God, you would give them a rootedness. And my hope and my prayer is that you would also just give them a spiritual resolve in that space and a grace to be able to engage you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Greetings, distinguished academic student scholars. I am Dr. Judith Makalonge, and it is my great honor and privilege to bring today's occasion as the 2021 and 2022 University-wide Professor of the Year. The 2022 Honors and Awards Convocation theme is excelling through every challenges. When I reflect on the importance of this convocation and the many students honorees being recognized today, this is a proud moment in time to celebrate academic excellency, leadership, and service. As I ponder the enormous challenges the world faces right now, a global pandemic, an unstable economy, major shifts in political ideologies, the war-torn countries of Russia and Ukraine battling for supremacy, it is clear that these are the times that require new ways of dealing with change across borders, cultures, generations, and academic institutions. We recognize that breaking paradigms is not easy. It requires a unique sense of courage and conviction to challenge prevailing wisdom or to forge an entirely new path forward. By tirelessly pursuing and embracing excellency, each of the young adults that we honor here today has demonstrated fortitude in the face of challenges and an optimistic faith in their own powers and in those of others that are necessary for managing changes in this society and beyond America. We recognize the stellar accomplishments of our freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and transfer students who have received a diverse array of scholarships, fellowships, awards, and other commendations. Their successes in many different disciplines represent their commitment to excellence as well as perseverance and commitment in tackling challenges large and small in this local, state, regional, and national landscape. I wish each of our students and honorees today continued excellence in all their individual and collective achievements. You are certainly our best and brightest hopes as future leaders and scholars of tomorrow.
Sean Calloway was born in Washington, D.C. and grew up in Prince George County, Maryland, where he was a sophomore at South Carolina State University. A classmate was playing with a gun and accidentally shot Sean in the temple. The accident resulted in the detachment of his optic nerves, which caused total blindness. Sean returned to the D.C. area and received blindness training at the Workforce Technology Center in Baltimore. He credits a blind man by the name of Lou Smith with providing his training and being an early mentor. He also credits his parents for encouraging him throughout his transition to life as a successful blind person. After his rehabilitation training, Sean earned his associate's degree in psychology from Essence Community College in 1995, his bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland in 1997, and then his master's in social work from Catholic University of America in 2000. He began his professional career working with the homeless at Catholic Charities, and then went on to counsel children in the Washington, D.C. public school system for the city's Department of Behavioral Health. He now works as a program specialist for the United States Department of Health and Human Services, specifically in programs of the Administration on Community Living and the Administration of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. In 2005, he married LaTanya Rollins of Cleveland, Ohio. Sean had heard of the National Federation of the Blind in the mid-1990s, but was initially convinced by a friend that the organization was too radical for him. In retrospect, he believes he was given bad information and wishes that he had become a Federalist earlier. After being invited to a chapter meeting by Linda Black White, Sean finally joined in the spring of 2009. He found himself leading the Washington, D.C. affiliate with longtime leader Don Galloway, died in 2011. Sean already had confidence in most of his blindness skills when he joined the National Federation of the Blind, but says that he was still apprehensive about becoming a parent. The opportunity to observe and talk to blind parents like Mark and Melissa Riccobono and Tracy Sofrendico, as well as D.C. Federalist named Vicki Smith, gave him confidence that he could be a successful blind parent. He is now the proud father of his daughter, Camille, who was born in 2014. Sean also credits participation in the NFB with opening up other leadership and community involvement opportunities for him. He had served on boards of the D.C. Center for Independent Living and Columbia Lighthouse for the Blind, and has chaired the D.C. Rehabilitation Council. He currently co-hosts a community radio program called Open Our Eyes on 2 stations. In addition, Sean serves as the president of the D.C. Friends of the Talking Book and Braille Library and is a member of the D.C. Blind Bowlers Association. Sean says, "I am grateful for the opportunity to serve on the NFB Board of Directors, both to give back to the organization as a whole and because so many past and present board members like Frank Schroeder, Arnold Lewis, Dr. Joanne Wilson, Sam Gleese, and Pam Allen, as well as Everly Hostin, have inspired and mentored me. I will strive to fill the same role for other leaders and members of our great movement and devote every ounce of my energy to building, the Federation, and advocating for all blind citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Evans, for that wonderful introduction. To President Conyers and his lovely wife, Agatha, to faculty and staff at South Carolina State University, to the students and alumni, and especially to the honorees this evening or this afternoon. I truly want to thank you on behalf of my wife, LaTanya Calloway, for this wonderful opportunity to bring a message to you today. Back in 1990, I was a fully sighted young man living in Prince George's County, Maryland, 17 years old, vacillating on if I was going to college or going into the workforce. When I decided to go to college, I attended an HBCU event, college fair. I was able to acquire about 20 or 30 different applications. And when I came home, I completed every application, and I submitted those applications to every university I applied to. Several weeks later, I received several acceptance letters. And as I was going over the acceptance letters, it was 11 o'clock at night, and the news just came on. And the news reported another killing of another African-American male in the Washington, D.C. area. When I saw that news clipping, news story, I happened to have an acceptance letter in my hand, but before looking at that letter, I said, honestly, I gotta leave here. At the time, a lot of African-American men were being killed in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. We call it the DMV. And I just did not want to be another statistic, quite honestly. And so when I decided at that moment that I wanted to go away to college, I looked at the letter in my hand, and it happened to say South Carolina State. Without visiting South Carolina, and without even walking on the campus, I took a chance on the school. And so as I prepared myself to attend South Carolina State University, I will never forget my parents and I packing up the car, and my dad let me know that we got 8 hours to go to get to South Carolina State. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know what I've got myself into. So as we drove to South Carolina, it was a long 8 hours, but we finally made it. And then I received sort of a second rude awakening. When I stepped out the car, it was hot, extremely hot. And I realized there were two types of heat. There will be the Prince George's County, Washington, D.C. heat, and the South Carolina heat. But I decided to stick it on in there, and this trip was to participate in freshman orientation. When I had my orientation, along with fellow freshmen, we all stayed in Truth Hall. Now, of course, that's the women's dorm, but for freshman orientation's sake, we all stayed in Truth Hall during the freshman orientation. Well, I decided to take a trip, and when I looked at my dorm assignment, it said Loman Hall. So when I walked across campus to Loman Hall, as I got closer, I kept saying to myself, this don't seem right. This is an old looking building. So as I stood in front of Loman, and it wasn't a look of awe, a gentleman came by and he said, excuse me, sir, are you staying in this dorm? And I said, well, yes, I am. He said, well, there are two things I want to tell you about this dorm. First of all, this is the only dorm on campus where there are no telephones in the room. I said, okay, how do we communicate? He said, by payphone. So I kind of swallowed that. I said, okay, I can deal with that for a couple semesters. Then he said something that really put a shock in my system. He said, well, second thing I wanted to tell you is that Loman Hall has no air conditioning. And I took a look, And I looked down at my feet, and I asked myself, what have I got myself into now? So after the freshman orientation, I kind of thought about my decision to attend South Carolina State, but it was no turning back. So when I arrived in August, got my room assignment in room 301. I sat down on the bed, and I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Maybe this is not such a bad move. And I'm glad I said that to myself because I met my first roommate. His name was David Richardson from Charleston, South Carolina. We greeted one another and exchanged pleasantries with our families. His mom came with him and his sister. And it started to sort of feel like home. But then my second roommate came in, a young man named Enos Snoddy from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Same thing, was able to meet his grandparents and his daughter. And it was just a feeling of family. And as I began to walk around Loman Hall, I began to meet other young men as well from different parts of South Carolina. And I realized that not only did I make the right decision, it was the best decision because South Carolina State started to become a family to me. Loman Hall was a hall of brothers. It was almost like a brotherhood. And one of the things I can honestly say during my time in Loman Hall is that I never was hungry. I never was out without support. But I was always sort of taken care of by my fellow brothers. Matter of fact, we carried the South Carolina State Loman Hall tradition of calling ourselves Lo-Fi Low. And it was just a wonderful thing. But to even venture out even more, to meet the young ladies from South Carolina State, they didn't become women that I wanted to date. They became sisters to me. And sisters who were just kind and would want to just to tell you the truth about any and everything in regards to the person that I was. Very candid, very straightforward. And the faculty and staff as well just felt like family. It was like home to me here at South Carolina State. And so as I ventured into my first semester and then into my second semester, I realized this was the school for me. I was happy. Coming down south, enjoying the Southern hospitality was just wonderful to me. And I was extremely happy to start off and come back for my second year at State. In between that time, though, when I came home for the summer, I got word that a couple friends of mine from high school were killed due to gun violence. And so I said to myself, this was the very reason why I decided to go down south, because I did not want to be a statistic. So I really was just hoping that the summer would go by fast so I can get back to South Carolina State. And when I arrived for that second year, it was again like family, seeing all my brothers and sisters. Again, going to class with some very supportive faculty and staff members. And I can honestly say, again, I made the right decision. Unfortunately, that all got cut short for me. Late in October, as I was preparing to go to class at Turner Hall, I was actually a resident in Mays Hall, which was right across the street. As I was preparing for class, a young man came into my dorm room playing with a gun. The gun went off and it hit me in the temple, and it caused me to be blind permanently. In one instance, in that single instance, I had to leave a school that I fell in love with. I had to leave a group of brothers and sisters that were so supportive of me. And basically, I had to leave South Carolina State for the reason I actually came, because I got shot. When I got home, I knew that I had several races that I had to deal with in my life. A race for independence, a race to complete my college education in 3 different levels. A race for meaningful employment, a race for housing, a race to find my soulmate. And as I completed many of these races, I can honestly say when I got towards the finish line, there was always a group of individuals dressed in garnet and blue cheering me on. I am so grateful to many of my classmates from South Carolina State who for over 30 years have supported me through all my endeavors, through all my trials and tribulations. I thank God for you, and I'm always thinking of you. You might have heard my bio, and I've actually done a whole lot in my life, but I can't go without thanking my parents, Anthony and Danita McCree, my brother and sister, Anthony Jr. and Fern, my aunts and uncles, classmates from Bladensburg High School, my fraternity brothers, anyone and everyone who assisted me. They were just very instrumental in my life. But I honestly want to say too, and this is not to be one that's bragging, being cocky, or boasting, but I had something special. That something special I had was possessed in many graduates from South Carolina State who have excelled in business, science, technology, engineering, and math, the educational and academia arenas, military, and law enforcement. That's something special that I have was witnessed by President Joe Biden back in December when he gave his commencement address to the fall class 2021. That's something special that I have was unleashed on Jackson State University during the Celebration Bowl in December. Yes, I went there. That's something special that I have, is what we call bulldog tenacity. There was never a time in my life where I was trying to achieve all my goals, where I wanted to give up. Reason why? Because I had that tenacity. I had that not give up spirit. And to the honorees today, you have that in you as well, especially for those of you who will eventually spend your 4 or 5 years at South Carolina State. And you're going to take that tenacity, and I'm sure you're going to take that tenacity to build your families, to excel in the professions that you choose. But I'm asking you to take that tenacity also to help your community as well. Let me take you back to 1979, where I was a 7-year-old living on a street called Madison off of Georgia Avenue in Washington, D.C., which was about several blocks from Howard University. Madison Street was no different than any other black neighborhood in the country. On one side of the street, you had young ladies playing double dutch and hopscotch. And on the other side of the street, you had a recreation center where you had young men playing basketball or on the grassy fields playing football. But one of the images I truly will never forget is seeing that young African-American professional coming off the bus after a long day's work. And he would walk on Madison Street and he would see the young men playing basketball. He would do 2 things. He would either unloosen his tie and hop the fence and play basketball with those young men, or he would go in the house and change his clothes and come out and play with those young men. Also, another image I remember is the young professional black woman coming home from work. And as she's coming down the street, she's seeing these young ladies playing hopscotch and double dutch. So she goes into her apartment, and 30 or 40 minutes later, she reappears. And she's out playing with those young ladies, doing double dutch and playing hopscotch. This story of this neighborhood kind of takes me fast forward to a commercial by a man that many of you know, Mr. Charles Barkley. And this commercial basically said that he was not a role model. He said that because I'm an athlete, I'm not a role model. Your parents should be your role model. And several years after he taped that commercial, he explained why he said that, because there were a lot of people up in arms about him saying he's not a role model, because people felt that all athletes should be role models. His explanation was that there should be more role models other than athletes. When he visited predominantly white schools to talk to children, he would always ask them, raise your hand if you want to get into sports and entertainment. And he said maybe 7% of those children raised their hand. And many of them talked about being doctors and lawyers. But he said when he visited predominantly black schools, he said when he asked the same question, the majority of the class would raise their hand. And he was just saying that he wanted these kids to understand that sports and entertainment is not the only way to get out of your neighborhood. When I think about the young man who unloosened his tie on Madison Street to play basketball, I was actually one of those kids he played basketball with. And after the game, he asked us, he said, what do y'all want to do when y'all grow up? And all of us looked at each other, and of course we said football and basketball. He said, well, if you can't play football and basketball, what do you want to do? So we all looked at one another and basically shrugged our shoulders, said, we don't know. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll be back out here in a few weeks, and you're going to tell me about something you want to do other than playing basketball and football. So that young man stayed true to his word. And so after we finished playing basketball with him once again, he asked us the same question. What do you want to do when you grow up? Most of us said, well, I didn't say it, but most people said, not football, but policemen, firemen. Some people said, some young men said post office because a young man's mother worked for the post office. I said businessmen because I enjoy watching some of the owners of black businesses count their money. What that young man did was plant a seed of knowledge in us as young people. He gave us sort of an alternative to think about other than sports. His questioning made us understand that education was important. So to the honorees today, I'm asking you to be that young man. Plant those seeds of knowledge into our young people. I'm sure many of you have gone back to visit your high schools, to talk to your fellow students about college and how it is at South Carolina State. But I'm asking you to dig deeper. Visit your middle schools. Visit your elementary schools as well. Let them see what success looks like. It was very important for this young man who unloosened his tie to tell us about other options other than sports, because if I can recall, many of those young men, I ended up moving out of the neighborhood, but none of us made it in sports. But most of us made it through education. And it was because of that seed that was planted. But not just for our honorees, but many of you out there who are listening. If you can plant those seeds in those young folks that are out in your families and your community, just drop a little knowledge on them. I'm telling you, we will be just fine. We always use that proverb of, it takes a village to raise a family. I'm gonna be honest, I'm a product of that proverb, but there are many who are not. And so if you could take a little time to provide a little guidance and advice, this will go a long way for young children to be prepared for what's out there today. Little did I know that we would be dealing with suppression of voter rights, attempts to eliminate our black history by not discussing the injustices of black people, and the continuous harassment and sort of brutality of our black men from law enforcement. But that's where we are right now. So who knows what those young people are going to deal with 15 to 20 years from now. But because you dropped a little knowledge on them, a seed of knowledge, they'll be more prepared and well equipped. I want to say that I'll be remiss if I did not mention the National Federation of the Blind. The National Federation of the Blind is an organization that advocates for the civil rights of blind people. In fact, many of their members will tell you that the National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that define our future. Every day we raise expectations of blind people because low expectations creates obstacles between blind people and their dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back. And so as we carry on, and I serve as president of the National Federation of the Blind of the District of Columbia and serve on the board of directors. As blind people, we are marginalized in this country. But for us as blind black people, and I'm giving you a dose of reality, sometimes we are marginalized by our own people, our own race. I can't tell you how many times where we have walked into a black church, we find ourselves having to be placed in a handicap or disability section as if we can't participate in church services or not have the ability to participate in certain ministries. I can't tell you how many times where I've heard people say, blind people say, I've gone on a job interview and I did not disclose that I was blind. And when I got there, the hiring manager got frazzled and said that the interview was actually changed and so can you come back and I'll call you. But that call would never come. I can't tell you how many times blind people have, especially blind men, have encountered where they will be dating someone. And the young lady would tell their parents about this outstanding blind man that they met. But these parents who are surprisingly products of the civil rights movement would tell their daughter, no, you shouldn't date a blind man because you may have to take care of him. You may have to pay all the bills. And I can't tell you how many times we have been marginalized in the media. Case in point, a few years ago on September 4th, 2019, I'll never forget it. I was sitting watching a popular morning show and these two hosts had took a call from a young lady who was blind. And she said, I have a gripe, and that gripe is that I can't understand why people won't hire me to babysit their children. The two hosts had automatically said, well, I can understand basically because you're blind. But the twist about it is that they weren't saying it in a comforting way. It was more of a condescending way to me. And they began sort of, I won't say the word chastising, but really diminishing this young lady's value by basically saying that blind people should not be watching kids. As I sat and watched that show, I felt bad. The feelings was, I won't say horrible, but it was very disappointing because these two men of color who know about being marginalized was now marginalizing blind people as people who are unable or not capable of caring for children. As a father of a 7-year-old who, by the way, last week picked up his daughter from school independently and dropped his daughter off to school independently as well, I was just totally offended by how this show was going. In fact, instead of taking calls from people who are blind and who are parents and who have taken care of children, they took calls from people asking them the question as if it was a comedy skit. Would you let a blind person watch your child? Of course, not one caller said yes. And keep in mind, calls are screened, okay? And then the biggest slap in the face came when one of the hosts said, well, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, that I still don't believe that blind people can take care of children or watch children, but if someone is willing to teach me that they can do this, I'm willing to listen. Well, the National Federation of the Blind contacted this show, and of course there were crickets. And that was very disappointing to me, because I'm usually not affected by words, but when you say words about blind people, that especially means that you can't, and those words are spread over the airwaves to thousands and thousands of people, that's a problem. Because those people will in turn then marginalize us as blind parents. And that's not something that we want in our society. All we want is a fair chance to do things that sighted people do as well. But blind people fight in a certain way. They fight back in a certain way. We advocate. We advocate in churches to eliminate sections for people with disabilities so we can sit amongst all the people, the parishioners in the church. In fact, in my church, not only did they get rid of the sort of disabled section, but they also have allowed a blind woman to be an usher. I've had several discussions with hiring managers to discuss the ADA and reasonable accommodations and giving people who are blind opportunities to be employed. There's nothing I can do when it comes to parents and their daughters. Matter of fact, many of us as blind men have all taken the mantra of, if you don't want us to date your daughters will listen to you in regards to that, that's fine. We'll move on. When I moved on, I found the love of my life, and we've been married for 16 years. And lastly, when it comes to systemic ignorance, we fight as blind people in state legislatures. When it comes to parents' rights, there are 16 states right now who have passed bills that will protect the rights of blind parents. That means if I am walking down the street with my daughter and someone calls Child Protective Service, you can't take my daughter from me because I'm blind. Right? If I'm in court and there's a custody battle, you can't use my blindness against me. If I want to take care of an elderly parent, you can't say to me, well, you can't take care of your parent because you're blind. 16 states, as a matter of fact, I want to acknowledge the National Federation of the Blind of South Carolina, who passed the Parents' Rights legislation bill here in South Carolina. And special shout out to Deborah Canty of the Sumter chapter as well. Along with their past president, Pernell Diggs, they passed this legislature, and now blind parents in South Carolina don't have to worry about sort of being discriminated against or looked upon as people who can't take care of their children. To your honorees, I'm telling you this story because based on your academic success, you're going to be ones who make decisions out there, especially in the workforce. I ask you to do two things. One, don't judge a person on their disability, but judge them on their capabilities of what they can and cannot do. The second thing I ask you to do is don't make assumptions about what people with disabilities can and cannot do. It's okay to ask. We're fine. We're happy to tell you how we are able to do our jobs, how we're able to function and navigate in our own homes, how we're able to be parents. That is not a problem at all. I would like to conclude by, first of all, mentioning that last October 30th, it was 30 years to the day, I lost my vision. And I wanted to have a real big celebration in a sense, to invite friends and fellow classmates from South Carolina State, but because of COVID restrictions, I couldn't do that. But I was able to get 5 friends to join me that evening, 5 graduates from South Carolina State. Miss Angela Farewell, Miss Sharonda Glover, Ms. Dawn Christie, Mr. Keith Holloway, and my roommate, Mr. Tim Suber. Excuse me. Who drove all the way up from Spartanburg, South Carolina, to be with me on that day. It was a night I will never forget, a night of reminiscing, but it just reinforced why I fell in love with South Carolina State. I also want to take the time to thank President Conyers. This opportunity that you've given me today is just one I will never forget. And I'm truly grateful to you for this opportunity. Next, I would like to thank all my fellow classmates and even students I didn't know when I was in Richland Memorial Hospital who came to visit me, who came to cheer me up, but more importantly, who came to pray for me. I'm truly grateful to you, and I thank you so much. It truly meant a lot to me and my family. Lastly, I want to thank a woman named Ms. Connie Shivers. On my last day in Richland Memorial Hospital, I got a call from Ms. Shivers, and she said, "Sean, you're going to have some challenges in life, but remember, just keep God in your life and keep the faith, and you're going to be all right." And I'm happy to say, Ms. Shivers, I'm doing all right, and I thank you. To the honorees today, please, I'm asking you to be that person, to jump over that fence and talk to the young folks, to plant that seed of knowledge. To that young lady who walked on the sidewalk and went and changed clothes, young ladies who are honorees, I want you to be that young lady, to be sort of that presence and modeling that positive behavior that black women do. To all the alumni of South Carolina State, to all the current students, I say bless you. More importantly, I say bless South Carolina State University. Thank you.
On behalf of the entire Board of Trustees, the entire Bulldog Nation, and especially our students and our honorees today, I want to personally thank you for traveling from Washington, D.C. to be with us today, you and your beautiful wife, LaTanya. You don't know the message that you shared with us and how long it would be with these students. Hopefully this message you shared today will be with our students as long as the message of hope was shared with you back in Washington, D.C. Thank you for your words of inspiration, your words of courage. Thank you for being an example, being the epitome of overcoming adversity. Thank you for being the epitome of resiliency. But more importantly, thank you for showing everyone how to forgive and how to advocate. Thank you for all that you've done for so many in your life. We are so, so grateful to have you still advocating for South Carolina State as well. And thank you for always, always, for the past 30 years, displaying that true Bulldog tenacity. So on behalf of Bulldog Nation, I'd like to present these gifts of our tokens of appreciation to you and your family. And this says, with our greatest appreciation, South Carolina State University's administration, faculty, staff, and students recognize Mr. Sean Calloway, 2022 keynote speaker, honors and awards convocation, Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Thank you so very much, Mr. Calloway.
Mr. President, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have another gift as well. We call this our swag bag, and you'll find something in there. There's a bag there that we hope you enjoy.
All right. We enjoy or just me?
Just you.
Thank you so much, President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Today is reserved to honor presidential scholars and those receiving other special awards and scholarships. Dr. Harriet Rowland, Dean of the Dr. Emily England Clyburn Honors College, will announce other special awards and scholarship categories.
South Carolina State University is grateful for the many donors and contributors to our scholarship fund. Our many partners who encourage academic excellence make it possible for many of our students to seek a university education. We believe that forging partnerships will advance South Carolina State University and increase our scholarships. In addition to our Presidential Scholar Medallion Award recipients, several other scholarships and awards are presented to well-deserving students, and we take pleasure in recognizing them at this time. Many of our Presidential Medallion Award recipients are also recipients of other scholarships and special awards, which can be found listed in today's program booklet under the categories of academic and memorial scholarships. At this time, I formally acknowledge all current scholars of the Dr. Emily England Clyburn Honors College who are listed in the program booklet. South Carolina State University encourages service, integrity, and excellence through a number of collegiate honor societies. I formally recognize all chapter advisors and student members of each of the academic honor societies listed in today's program booklet.
President Conyers, I have the pleasure of presenting to you these students who have earned and maintain a cumulative grade point average from 3.00 to 4.00, and therefore they are eligible for the university's distinction as presidential scholars to receive the coveted Presidential Scholar Medallion.
With the power vested in me as the interim president of South Carolina State University, I confer upon you the university distinction of Presidential Scholar and award you the prestigious Presidential Scholar Medallion pin in honor of your demonstrated scholarship and service. Dr. Evans joins me today in congratulating our scholars on this very special occasion.
At this time, the 5 academic deans of our degree-granting colleges will present the recipients from each medallion category.
I am Dr. Barbara L. Adams, Dean of the College of Business and Information Systems. It is my privilege and honor to recognize all freshmen, sophomores, and juniors who are recipients of the Presidential Medallion Bronze Pin.
am Dr. M. Evelyn Fields, Dean of the College of Education, Humanities, and Social Sciences. It is my privilege and honor to recognize all senior and transfer students who are recipients of the Presidential Medallion Bronze Pins.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Stanley N. Ihekwazu, Dean of the College of Science, Technology, Engineering, Mathematics, and Transportation. It is my privilege and honor to recognize all recipients of the Presidential Medallion silver pins.
I am Dr. Lakeisha Tucker, Dean of the College of Graduate and Professional Studies. It is my privilege and honor to recognize all recipients of the Presidential Medallion Gold Pin.
am Dr. William H. Whitaker, Acting Dean for the College of Agriculture, Family and Consumer Sciences. The following graduating seniors have received a perfect 4.0 grade point average for their entire matriculation at South Carolina State University. It is my genuine honor and privilege to recognize them at this time. Each honoree will be presented with a special citation for stellar academic achievement at a later date. The students are Janatica M. Cohen, Omar Burke Gogan, Jessica Grace Louise Outlaw, and Kaya Stokes. To all of our award recipients, as you continue the legacy of your alma mater through academic excellence, leadership, and service, we extend to you our best wishes for continued success. Thank you, and now the draping ceremony.
Today has truly been a celebration of excellence that will be recorded in the history of South Carolina State University. First, I congratulate you, our awardees, for the honors and awards that you have received, and I encourage you to continue your efforts affirming the role of this great university as you prepare to meet the challenges that await you. To our speaker and lawyer son, Mr. Sean Calloway, we say thank you for energizing us with your dynamic keynote speaks. We offer our best wishes to you. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our South Carolina State Board of Trustees, alumni, faculty and staff, retired faculty and staff, city, state, national government officials, and all academic deans, department chairpersons, and faculty and staff members. To the 2022 Honors and Awards Convocation Committee and its chair, Dr. Harriet Rowland, we say thank you. Thank you very much for a job well done. Lastly, there's a special group of people who sit in our audience today virtually who support our honorees in many ways, from prayers to financial support to chastisement sometimes, but always with love. We take this time to acknowledge all of the parents, guardians, and spouses of our honorees today. And we applaud you for your tremendous support you give to our students and to South Carolina State University. This has indeed been an amazing day. Provost Evans will now bring the final announcements and closing remarks.
Please join us in the singing of the South Carolina State University alma mater with uplifted voices. It will be followed by the benediction by Minister Zachary D. Middleton.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for this time. Time to honor our graduates. My prayer is that from this time that they would continue in their various achievements, not just here at South Carolina State University, but wherever they may be placed throughout the world. My hope and my prayer, God, ultimately, is that they will be able to leverage their talents, their skills, their gifts for something greater than themselves. So in Jesus' name I pray, amen.